I'm actually sitting here with a guy that I first probably met, 4 or 5 years ago. Drew came across from the States, and of course, therefore, when he pitched up into the United Kingdom, was perceived to be a guru of everything online, everything social, and I give him a big give it large. No, Drew's done some really cool things. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, just say to Drew, introduce yourself, sir. Tell us a little bit about the background, the things you've done. And then my second question, which I'll get in now because you can link, is tell us about what you're going to do in the future.
Sure. So again, I joined, as Keith mentioned, a business called Your RCG Riley about 4.5 years ago as head of digital strategy. And over the course of my career, that's pretty much what I focused on. I started in 1997 at a little agency called Austin Knight in their Los Angeles office, and happened to come out of university at a time when the internet had just become really big. So midway through my 4 years at university, we got a little thing called Netscape Navigator. And being an avid gadget geek and computer fiend, that thing blew my mind. The fact that I could be sat in a small dormitory in Hanover, New Hampshire, and I knew exactly what was going on up to the minute. The game between the Miami Heat and the Los Angeles Lakers at the time blew my mind. Little did I know that a couple of years later, I'd find myself inside of an ad agency telling clients that it didn't make any sense to put a 3x6 column ad into the Los Angeles Times for $10,000 when they could buy a posting on the Monster board for $215, and yes, that's when it was called the Monster board, and that would last for 60 days. So, I suppose my career has been built around being an interactive marketing or interactive recruitment marketing consultant across a few different agencies. Most recently, however, I've joined a business called Blackbridge Communications, where I'm the strategy director, and I suppose the focus of my role has moved not entirely away from digital, but digital is no longer something I believe that needs to stand alone as a department. Digital is not something separate. There is not a digital agency. So what we are is we're a communications agency that helps businesses communicate brands and brand strategy, whether it's to potential customers or to potential employees. And we use proper agency brand backgrounds and branding knowledge and branding methodologies alongside digital competencies to make that happen. And to answer your second question, which is kind of where do I see things going in the future, I feel that things are going to continue to move away from what we would consider sort of traditional advertising and become more about engaging people and finding ways to have conversations with the market about what makes your business great. And that's to people that might want to buy your product or service, might want to come work for you, might know somebody who lives down the street. For whatever reason, it's about engaging people in conversations now about what makes your business great.
Money. You talked about the massive erosion of yield between the old print media and job board media. Do you actually think that has damaged in any way, shape or form the industry, and that actually advertising has become almost a dirty word? Because it's no longer valued. Because if you can buy a job for $25 or $8 if you're a recruitment consultant, I don't know. What's your take on that?
Well, I suppose has it damaged the advertising industry financially? I suppose yes. In many respects, it has, because the amount of money that can be made sheerly on media transactions, when you compare traditional printed media versus digital media, there is a smaller pot, that you're dealing with. But actually digital communications opens up a wealth, and a lot of the social communications today opens up a wealth of opportunity for communications businesses to make money. And I think the important thing to remember here is that marketing has always contained a number of, arrows, in its, what's the expression I'm looking for? Feathers in its cap, I suppose, is another one.
Yeah.
Marketing is multifaceted, right? So marketing includes things like public relations, marketing includes things like advertising, but it also includes things like word of mouth. So I suppose what we're looking at is that there's now far more opportunities for businesses in the world of communications to sell to clients that need to market themselves. And so there's actually a greater opportunity, in my opinion, for advertising agencies if they're able to adapt quickly to the notion that the new channels are far more than just places to advertise and look for response.
Now, earlier on, you were talking to me about a client you've been working on. Are you allowed to talk about this client?
Absolutely, yeah.
Would you relate some of the conversation we've just had? Because it's a really cool story, right from what the CEO said and wanted to do? Because I think my readers would want to hear this.
Absolutely. I think this is it's fantastic because it's this very conversation that made a huge shift for me in terms of my mindset about the business I'm in, the kind of world of employment marketing, and also about my own individual career. So we've been working with, at your RSCG Riley, we've been working with Reckitt Benckiser as a major client. And over the course of our relationship and looking at things like their employer value proposition and their recruitment website, and quite a lot of the work that we were doing, we were asking them a lot of questions about brand position, about what their sort of corporate strategy was. And a lot of the work that we were doing, because it was global in nature, we did a global careers website for them. A lot of this work attracted the attention of their executive committee and of their HR leadership team, which consists of HR directors from several locations around the world. What ended up happening through a lot of this work, but also through a lot of their own corporate vision, their own corporate strategy, their executive committee began having conversations, which actually began with Bart Becht, their CEO, recognizing that awareness of Reckitt Benckiser's corporate brand was an incredibly important aspect of their marketing that they needed to focus on. And one of the reasons that they chose to do this at this time was primarily around the kind of the old war for talent, if you will, in that, where some of their competitors, businesses like Unilever and Procter & Gamble, had always made sure that you knew who sat behind the products. Reckitt Benckiser's business philosophy was very much around, strong financial performance and aggressive growth. So they were more worried about selling Finish and Vanish and Veet and Dettol and some of the other kind of household power brands that we all know about. They were far more concerned with the profit that could be made from pushing those products than at the time making sure that people knew who Reckitt Benckiser was. And as a business is very focused on financial performance, there wasn't, in my opinion, and this never came from them directly, but in my opinion, I think what Reckitt Benckiser realized was that they hadn't seen the real benefit of focusing on marketing the corporation. So suddenly, it became relevant to them in the midst of a talent war when Bart Becht began having conversations with the executive committee and with his director of communications about raising the profile of the Reckitt Benckiser brand, not to impress the financial markets, not to impress shareholders, but more so to impress potential candidates, all of the existing marketeers out there and research scientists that might be looking to, have a corporate job and do research around surface care products and things like that. That because Reckitt Benckiser never had that little thing at the end of any of their television commercials that said made by Reckitt Benckiser, they never did much PR around the corporation itself, that the top talent in the market didn't really realize that Reckitt Benckiser was on the map and a place that one could go work. And yet when you examine what was behind that story, when you examine what Reckitt has to say to a potential employee, they've got some really strong stories. FTSE 25 organization, managers in the business can earn on average 140% of their salary as an annual bonus. Their CEO has been rated the top or highest paid CEO in Europe, I believe 4 out of the last 5 years, by the Financial Times. Their executive committee are often referred to and referenced in Business Week magazine and other global business publications. So actually as a corporation, they're incredibly strong. They've got a very strong culture. They've got a strong dedication to corporate social responsibility. They work people hard, but they offer in exchange a lot of opportunity to the right type of individual. So these are all stories that need to be told. Now the big fundamental shift here, and sorry it's a bit of a long-winded answer, but the big fundamental shift here was that advertising could not tell that story. Imagine running an ad that said, come and work for Reckitt Benckiser. We offer you more opportunity earlier in your career than anyone else. That sounds like everyone else is advertising. If you were to say, Reckitt Benckiser has a fantastic management team, read some articles about our CEO in Business Week. Well, quite a few other businesses could make that claim as well. So what we had to do was to think of another way to create the effect that we were looking for, which is to raise awareness of the brand. And we took a very kind of social media engagement focused approach to the campaign, which was about making sure that when people were looking for information, when they were looking for conversations about high performing businesses, when they were looking for conversations about companies that would offer, a fantastic opportunity to move around the world, that you would find conversations being held about this business in those environments. And that was a fundamental shift that I think kind of really illustrates the point we were making a minute ago about, where the shift has moved. It's not that advertising is less important, but that advertising now sits alongside several other tools.